Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for one of our favorite shows, This Week with Wendy. The only show that shows you the real SoCal state of mind. With your host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, decided to do something completely different. And so she did. She created Veracity Real Estate. Time was right for a renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels, something you just don't see in high-priced markets like Southern California. And through it all, she's built a company of data-driven real estate investment advisors who are truth seekers and are at the front of what's happening. And that's certainly the case this week. Wendy, you were at the front of what's happening.
Where else would I be, Paul? Come on.
You weren't following others. You were out there leading the charge with the people who do it. Can you? I know you're going to talk about this in future shows, but you were at.
We will do a future show. Yes.
You were at some pretty cool events this weekend.
Yes. So we were at Modernism Week in Palm Springs, which has become a global phenomenon where people come to discuss the furtherance of preserving and enjoying and advocating for mid-century modern architecture. So it was really fun. I'm so tired. I need a day off.
Because it goes on for like a whole week, doesn't it?
Actually, this time it was 10 days.
Yeah. So you were at the kickoff party and took you some events and all that. They invited you to come out and cover this thing. You and the Wall Street Journal.
And dwell in the LA Times and
New York Times.
Yeah, it was really, really quite something. Kara almost literally backed into Laura Bush.
You're kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
To the Secret Service, I apologize. I really did not see her, and I meant her no harm.
And they were watching very carefully.
Cool.
They're like, who's the lady? What's going on?
We almost spawned a national crisis.
Yeah.
Right.
Apologies.
She's so lovely. I want to age like her. She's just so
Does
lovely.
she? She's still.
She's
she always seemed very
beautiful.
graceful and everything.
She's just the epitome of elegance. But anyway, I digress. That's another show, people. You're going to have to wait for it.
There you go. Right.
Yep. No, but now,
Perhaps
of course,
Mrs. Bush could come on our show and talk about her experience with Modernism Week.
If you hadn't pushed her.
Wait, I said almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. That was just a
You're starting rumors, Paul.
You guys are taking me so off point. I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? Oh, wait, that's right. This Week with Wendy. Okay,
That's right.
So I'm back for yet another week of market analysis. And you know me, Paul. I say things other realtors won't, and they probably usually won't admit. So that's today.
That's today. All
Today,
right.
yeah, we're tackling a often misunderstood topic and one that has lent to this growing misconception and distrust of our industry, and people thinking that our industry is rigged. So we're going to talk about agency commission. So how we get paid to enable buyers and sellers to make the smartest decisions possible without running afoul of the law or losing their
You guys
shirts.
get paid to do all this stuff here?
Yeah, theoretically. Sometimes. So, yeah, and we're going to explore that topic further, me and the lovely Miss Kara Stewart, who's back to help me.
Thank you, Wendy. Hi, Paul.
Welcome.
But before we get further afield, let me do what I do weekly, and that's dive into what's happening in the local market. So, at present, we have 2,423 active listings, and mind you, normally at this point in February, we'd have between 4,000 and 5,000. So, really, really under inventoried. However, 1,016 were already in escrow, and midway through the month, that rate of sales would mean that it would only take half a month or 15 days, you can do the math, to sell homes. So our days on market had gone from 82 to 69 to 15. Interesting trend. 710 homes have sold month to date, and they're selling at 98.65% of asking price. So again, within 2% of the asking price. So prices aren't falling much. I mean, we've looked at a 1% downward trend, but that's really enough to be considered zero. By the end of the month, we'll see what that means. Median price is at the moment $932,250 for Orange County. So what's interesting is that February home sales have continued January's trend of gaining momentum faster than we expected. There's 34% fewer homes available now than there were last month, yet 63% as many have sold so far compared to last month in total. So the pace is definitely accelerating. And these stats, like I said, it's still skinny. We still don't have enough homes for sale, and so the number sold is still a small number. So we can't get all excited and think, okay, sellers, jack up your prices. No. But what it does indicate is that prices are going to remain stable. But what I want people to remember is that normally home sales are slow in the first quarter of the month, and they slowly pick up momentum into the summer month. That's traditional. This is a non-traditional year yet again. And the R word that has been bandied about, all the economists are saying the recession is going to, come home to roost probably mid-year. So when the summer cycle is heating up, could very well be when the headlines read that we're deep in recession, and that will cause people to go into Chicken Little mode and flee the market again. So if home sellers are waiting till summer to sell their home, I think that's a really bad idea. The recession is coming. It's coming this year. We're just not sure when. So if you want to wait and catch that falling knife, good luck. I wouldn't. I would put my home on the market now. So
We had somebody on an earlier show, we do another show on commercial real estate, and they were comparing it and saying that really, from a broker standpoint, from a market standpoint, stagnant isn't good. Because if the market's falling, then people adjust and they start lowering prices, and and people are buying because prices are coming down. If the market's going up, the same thing. I better get in now because it's going to get more expensive. So either of those produces activity, but when the market's flat, nobody knows what to do, and therefore does nothing.
exactly. And it begets nothing. And it becomes this horrible, cycle of stasis.
Right.
And that's exactly right. Think about any time one is in limbo. If you are waiting for a new job, but you're not sure if you're going to get it. If you're waiting for anything in life, it's easier to make a decision when you have the options.
Right.
But when you're simply sitting there, twiddling one's thumbs,
Waiting.
not knowing what's going to happen,
Right.
that's actually when a lot of the problems with consumer confidence come in, when those who are trying to predict what's going to happen. And Wendy, I've heard you have so many conversations with sellers or buyers saying, I'll just wait and see what happens. And time again, those who have said that for several months, I know one client's actually said that for 2 years, continues to either be priced out of the market,
Right.
or they continue to lose the homes that they really want, or if they haven't put their home up for sale yet, they're seeing that their equity decline.
It's really painful to watch these people stuck in analysis paralysis and not make decisions and lose money. So, and inventory is going to be slim for a while. So, especially if you're looking for the one and it comes on the market, you'd better grab it, because another one may not come up for 2 years. And then where are you going to be? Yeah, we are in uncharted territories. The world has changed. Real estate has changed forever.
That's the key. I think people think it's just a temporary aberration,
No.
and it's going to come back to normal, whatever that normal was for 20 years. Yeah.
This is the beginning of a new normal, and that's exactly why we're talking about what we're talking about today.
Exactly. I mean, all of these topics really are intertwined, because this loss of consumer confidence, this overall loss of feeling that there are experts who can guide us, and then price crunches, and people are feeling the pinch all over. So they're trying to look at ways to minimize their risk, but in doing so, actually are creating more risk for themselves.
Yeah, it's sad.
As a real estate market analyst and as a broker owner, the data you provide each week here on the show, in your market reports, and to your clients is just one small fraction of your job, really.
Yes.
And it's getting harder and harder because everyone reads the media headlines, from national to local, and those that think of themselves as thought leaders, many of whom are in the Chicken Little category. The average consumer looks at these headlines, has a brief takeaway, and think that they know enough now to handle the local market and make decisions.
It's true.
But they really don't, because real estate takes sophisticated analysis. And as a realtor, of course, you have access to nearly real-time data that the average consumer does not.
Yes.
And it really used to be that because of that, and for other reasons, people like realtors and other experts were truly trusted. But we do live in an age of disinformation, and that has bred contempt and mistrust of so many trusted advisors. Think about how people fear and sometimes even loathe doctors, scientists, attorneys. And while we can all make jokes about different professions and, whether or not what's the joke, they belong at the bottom of the sea,
Yeah.
but really, you all have become experts in your field because the years and years of education, risk, and deep commitment to your profession and practice is there. And that's really kind of eroded. Right now, the average Joe or Jane thinks that they're better informed than doctors and scientists, legal professionals, and even realtors. And that comes across in various trust surveys that are there. But what happens once these trusted advisors are mistrusted? And that's what we're really going to talk about today. There are a series of issues that we're going to be unpacking not only in your show, but in the content that you publish on your website and in social media. And sorry, Paul, a couple of other media companies are asking Wendy for some advice here
That's
too.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's, rising tide. But one of the most talked about sins, if you will, of realtors is you get paid to do nothing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish that was true, right?
Right?
But this really has brought about a backlash from consumers, and it's also forced our industry to defend itself and sometimes really reevaluate business models, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I've been talking about this for a while, and I want to put it out there. I totally agree that many agents have not earned their fees. I totally agree with that statement. I've been screaming that from the rooftop for I don't know how long. And reform is absolutely needed. But let's take a step back and really understand what it is we're talking about reforming and why. There's good, bad, positive, and negative to everything. So, for example, we had a prior guest on the show. She's an appraiser, and she shared that to become a licensed real estate appraiser, she was required to apprentice under someone for a considerable period of time. She was required to have direct oversight under someone doing her job, auditing her work, making sure she was competent before she was allowed to go out and do it on her own. Theoretically, that exists for realtors. Theoretically, that's why real estate agents must work under a broker. The reality is most brokers don't supervise their agents. Most brokers don't train their agents except on how to go and get a sale. Get a sale, get a sale, get a sale at any price, get the client, get the client. They're not training them on legalities. They're not training them on negotiations. They're not training them on ethics. They're not training them on any professional business, endeavors generally. There are a few that do. And trust me when I say a few, it's probably less than 5%. And it's shocking. Absolutely shocking. So, yes, we need reform. And something that I don't think people realize is that as brokers, I'm required to adhere to state law, obviously county ordinances, and numerous associations and trade groups that supervise my work, including the National Association of Realtors, the California Association of Realtors, and then all the local boards. And I'm a member of the Newport Beach Association of Realtors, but there are a variety of boards out there. So there are many, many layers of oversight of the brokers, theoretically. If somebody complains, but are the brokers really managing their agents? And so, there's been debate for the past few years about whether realtors are fairly compensated, and the state has implemented changes to real estate contract language surrounding commissions because of it. They're reinstituting or reinvigorating the buyer-broker agreement, which is a document and an agreement that has existed in the state's library of contracts for real estate for decades. It just hasn't been used. And now that's coming more to the fore because of this conversation about commissions and commission splitting. So recently, local associations, including my board, contacted all of us to say, okay, let's talk about the myths and misconceptions about the buyer-broker agency agreement and compensation agreement. So that's where we're going today.
And let's get into some terminology before we get into this.
Yeah.
So this buyer-broker agreement really is part of buyer representation, right? Mm-hmm. And what all goes into buyer representation?
Well, think of it like, excuse me, hiring an attorney. So let's say you felt that someone defrauded you and you have your attorney looking out for your best interests, and the other person that you feel defrauded you has their attorney representing their best interests. And buyers and the Department of Justice and various government entities are saying, well, hey, wait a minute. If the buyer's agent is supposed to look out for their best interest, why is the seller's agent paying them? That seems like an inherent conflict. And they're not wrong. But there are many reasons why that has been so, and that's because the cost for a buyer to pay for their own accurate and hopefully competent representation is an onerous cost. So it's easier to absorb that cost in the transaction through the selling price of the home. And then we get into the ethics of, okay, splitting the hairs, is that really right?
So I think part of the issue and the backlash is really it's kind of shrouded in mystery of how agents get paid. You just mentioned that it's actually the sellers that pay the commissions, but what does that mean? So could you break down for us simply, how do agents get paid?
Yeah, it's really a fascinating thing. When, let's say I go out to your house, Kara, I say, Kara, thank you for letting me sell your home. Here's the listing contract. And in the listing contract, we put all the terms of the sale. So we're going to sell your house for this much money. We're going to include these fixtures. We're going to exclude those things. Oh, yeah. And by the way, you agree to pay X% for commission. It's usually 5 or 6% depending upon the price of the home. And I, as your seller's agent, as the listing agent, then agree in that contract to share that gross commission that you've agreed to with the other side. So should a buyer come along with an agent, I've preordained that agent's going to get paid X. It's usually a percentage. Now here's the trouble, because buyers are saying, well, wait a minute, my agent is getting paid a percentage of the selling price. So the higher the price I pay, the more money they're going to make. How is that serving me?
What do those percentages usually look like? Is there an average?
It's usually split 50-50. So it's usually 2.5% to 3% per side based upon a gross commission of 5% or 6%. And this is paid to the brokers on each side. And then the brokers have a separate agreement with their agents determining how that filters down to the agent level.
But most consumers don't even have a relationship with the broker.
I know.
So why do they get a piece of it?
It's really fascinating. And many brokers haven't even met their agents, which just blows my mind.
Wow.
They're literally brokers in name only. They're brokers on paper only. And often they're in different cities than their agents or their offices and things. Once in a while, they may tour through and say hi and have coffee. And I know, because I worked for a couple of big companies like that, where very few of us ever met the managing broker. Anyway, so the reason the broker gets a piece of whatever they're not doing is because we are literally legally responsible for every word in every document that is generated out of the mouth of or from the hand of our agents. So it's as if I said and did it myself when my agents say and do things. The liability for that is enormous. If they screw up and get sued, I get sued too. So I take a piece to cover my liability and to train them.
Because brokers really are business owners.
Yes.
So you're not only responsible for the total overhead, of the business, but you've also had to have additional credentialing, additional coursework, and there's a higher level exam than an agent, right?
Correct.
What does that look like?
Well, it's more into law. Obviously, it's deeper into contract law. It's deeper into fiduciary responsibility. And I don't want people to think that you have to take this coursework to become a broker. If you're already an attorney, all you have to do is take the state exam, because it's understood you've already studied contract law and real estate law and as part of your standard coursework. So I'm not to say you have to do this to get there. It's one route to get there. And it's the route that I took because I don't have my JD.
You could, though.
Yeah, I've been told that a lot.
That was one of the career paths for you, possibly. All right, we've already established that sellers pay commissions. Can sellers negotiate to lower their commissions?
They can, but the challenge here is that there are two completely separate documents at play, two completely separate contracts. The listing contract between a seller and their broker is a standalone agreement. And then along comes a buyer with a purchase contract, separate agreement. So this purchase contract can't say, I'll buy the house if you renegotiate the commissions. And that's where it gets slippery. And that's why these new issues have come to the fore, because a document that came after first one was executed in good faith can't amend that document. So this is where the rubber meets the road. So yes, traditionally, the listing agreement has dictated how much all agency fees are going to be split, how much they're going to get, and who's going to get what. A buyer can actually enter into their own broker compensation agreement from the beginning. They can say, okay, Wendy, you're going to be my broker. You're going to help me find a house, and I agree to pay you X. It could be anything. It could be a flat fee. It could be a percentage. It could be a flat fee plus a percentage, for doing a good job, whatever. But then when you write the purchase agreement, you now have to indicate on the purchase agreement, we have a separate buyer broker agreement. And that is when the seller can decide whether or not they're going to renegotiate their listing agreement with their client. And that's the murky part. Will a listing broker renegotiate? Some of them won't.
And as evidenced by that, on the listing agent side, there was a study done just a couple of years ago from the Consumer Federation of America. And that really showed that listing agents were not willing to negotiate.
Right, right. What I find really troubling is that the listing broker owns the listing. So if you listed your home with me, Kara, and we said we're going to make this a 6-month contract, because, it usually takes, I don't know, a few weeks to get a house ready, a few months maybe to be on market, depending upon the time of year, and then escrow can take a month or two. So it's pretty easy to burn through 6 months. Let's say you get 3 months into it and you decide, I'm not going to sell my house. I don't want to sell my house. Wendy, cancel that listing. I can say no. It is a bilateral agreement, and we both have to agree to it. I can say, nope, I am not going to cancel your listing. And I can handcuff you to it. I can and should withdraw it from the MLS so the world at large doesn't know that it's for sale. I can withdraw it, and withdrawing something from the market is different from canceling it from the market, and that's an important thing for people to know. So
how does withdrawing versus canceling differ, and what's kind of the impact on it?
Canceling means I release you from the agreement so you could go out tomorrow and hire another broker.
So
Withdrawing means I take it off the market, but you have to wait until my contract actually expires before you can list another broker.
And historically, those rules were in place to protect the agents because of so much, the hours, hundreds of hours you spend educating your clients, conducting market analysis, marketing, as well as all of the overhead you hold. And that comes out directly of your pocket before you see one dime.
Correct. Yeah, we're often a couple thousand, at least tens of thousands, depending upon the price of the home, out of pocket before we get paid. And I don't know many or any other industries where that's the case. Truly. Like our good friend had said about, was it Picasso? That was approached by someone and whipped out a drawing on a napkin and said, okay, that'll be $1 million. And they were like, wait, what? You just did that in 5 minutes. And he said, well, yes, but it took me 30 years to develop those skills. Same thing for us. Not only is it the time that we spent, it's the decades that I've spent building my good name and garnering troops of professionals that are necessary to get the job done excellently. I have great relationships with staging companies, painters and contractors, flooring people, window cleaners, believe it or not, how rare that is, arborists, all of the people that you need to bring to the table immediately. You want to sell your house? Okay, good luck going and finding all those people in the next 30 days. I promise you it's not going to happen.
All right, we're going to get into that in a moment, but we're among friends here. Let me ask you the personal question. Do you ever negotiate or allow your sellers to negotiate? And if so,
you mean commission?
Yes,
with
commission.
Me. Yeah.
With you.
I don't let my clients negotiate with the other party ever.
No, commission with you.
Yeah. But in terms of commission with me, yeah, absolutely. And everything is circumstantial. In the past, I have had buyers come to me and say, well, XYZ company has said that they'll rebate part of their commission to me at closing. Will you? And my initial answer is no. Unless, let's take a look at what the situation is. Maybe, but am I going to promise you that out of the gate? No, I'm not. You were recommended to me, right? Yeah. Do you trust who recommended you to me? Yes. There's a reason they recommended me to you, because I'm very, very good at this. I will save you time. I will save you money. Let's just go get this done.
And some states don't even allow that to occur. California does with the rebates. But I know in you working with clients, I've heard you approach the fair compensation conversation because you've had a long-term relationship with them. You handle a portfolio of properties for them, or they're in special set of circumstances.
And that's exactly my point when I said it's circumstantial. You know, if I have someone who's bought 3 properties, 5 properties with me, we may talk about a reduced fee because we know we have very clear communication and that the process is going to go far faster. So it will take less of my time and I will be free to help other clients more readily than with a first-time client. So there's nuance to everything. And of course, this is really commonplace. People will say, okay, will you give me a really great deal on my listing commission so when you sell my house because I'm going to buy one with you? I tell you, it's the weirdest thing. Half the time when people say that, they don't buy with me. They don't buy at all. They rent, they move to another state. You know, their circumstances change. They think so. I hope they think so. I hope they meant it in good faith. But in actuality, oftentimes it doesn't happen. So I've lost money on both. So instead, I flip that conversation and say, let's do this. Let's do market rate for the listing, and I'll give you a massive discount on the buy side.
It all comes down to having conversations, and that's
Yeah.
part of that trusted relationship
Yeah.
that you cultivate.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into the legal challenges that really have forced this issue of decoupling
Yeah.
of commissions. First of all, what are these legal challenges? What does it mean to decouple? And what's really driving this conversation?
Yeah, I love that word decoupling. Got that from Otto Katrina, the past president of CAR, California Association of Realtors. And it simply means that the commissions are locked together from the onset. And so separating them should add to fairness for each party, and it should add to more fairness in pricing. You know, so will a buyer's broker work as hard to reduce the price their client is paying if they're going to make less money? You know, so I do see the logic in that, and that's what's behind it. And apparently there have been class action lawsuits because the Department of Justice has been investigating this issue for more than 2 years now. It's clearly an issue and it needs to be resolved. So we're assuming that decoupling the commissions is going to encourage price competition. Hopefully. I mean, they're saying that we're stifling competition now. So I don't know, maybe.
It's an issue that there are valid points on each side. In general, what is the real estate industry's take on this, though? You know, the NARs of the world and others.
And while we can't pretend that the National Association of Realtors is impartial, they exist to further, you know, the welfare of their members, realtors. However, realtors aren't going to enjoy a good living if they're engaging in shenanigans. So, you know, remember that. Anyway, NAR says that the traditional commission structure makes it possible for more people, especially first-time home buyers or entry-level price buyers, to be able to afford to buy a house by getting them competent agency that's paid for by somebody else. And the system of splitting the commissions, it really does strengthen the market and enables more first-time buyers. Without it, if only the wealthy could buy homes, we'd be, well, further down the same road we're going down. Orange County's already, you know, we've tipped over that line already. Let's not exacerbate it. Even so, we've talked about this in past shows, just this conversation, if this conversation advances and if the buyer's sentiment that they're not getting well cared for continues, we're going to see more class action lawsuits and we're going to see changes in the way this is done.
And to prevent that, or perhaps get ahead of it in the spirit of self-policing, if you will, NAR has taken some steps, right?
Yeah. What I think a lot of people don't understand, and I'll back up here for a minute, is that every bit of information that a consumer sees on Realtor.com or Zillow or Open Door or ColdwellBanker.com or RealVeracity.com, every bit of information that they see anywhere that they look up real estate details comes from the same source. It all is extracted from the multiple listing service. And that information is all input by the listing agent, period, end of story. So what NAR has demanded that the MLS does is publish that field of data about how much the buyer's agent's going to earn when the home is sold. And that information has been protected until now, which I agree with. Yeah, show it.
Transparency is good for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and if you want to do the math backwards, figure out what that commission is and divide it by 100 hours or 200 hours, and, you know, you'll feel sorry for us. But There you go. So they're going to have to publish that, and that is going to be then fed out into all the consumer-facing sites, so people can see it. It'll be transparent. Um, and what's interesting too is that they've been very, very vigilant about this, and I agree that we as an industry are not allowed to say to buyers, your fee for services is nothing. You're getting our agency representation for free. They're not. It's being paid for them by a third party at the moment. Maybe in some cases, the buyers will prefer to pay it directly themselves. So far, that's not going to be a tax deductible event. So we'll have to see what happens with taxing agencies, if that can be considered a cost to acquire and, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. But what's interesting is that the former NAR president, Charlie Oppler, said that this policy of reform should prevent, they want to say forbid, but how do you, they're trying to prevent agents from steering clients away from listings that might be perfect for them, but are offering lower compensation. And sadly, I dissolved a prior partnership many years ago over that very thing. You will stop cherry picking the listings. Only showing the ones that pay you the highest money. Don't do it. It's not okay.
And in a previous show, you talked about some of those dirtier practices that agents perform, such as what you just said, steering clients away from homes that would be perfect for them, but the realization is the agent will achieve a lower commission, or even doing the pocket listing in which a home is not advertised, but only promoted to a select group of people so that the agent can make a quick buck,
Right.
without actually thinking about the long-term benefits for their client, who possibly could have yielded a higher value or higher price for their home.
Most often, yes. And to say that's not cronyism is silly. It is cronyism. You're my buddy, you get first shot at this house. You're the wife of my buddy, you're my buddy's boss. Yeah, come over here. It's cronyism.
Yeah, it's a country club rule.
Right, right. And steering people, when you hear this, when we say steering, I'm not using that term lightly. It is a legal word. It literally means I am pointing you towards something deliberately. And that is not something, as a fiduciary, I'm allowed to do. So confining what you see and learn and hear and know is in direct violation of my fiduciary responsibility to you as a real estate professional, broker or agent. So anyway.
So, one of the arguments against decoupling is that NAR and others do say that it actually will harm a lot of people, especially those who are lower income or first-time buyers.
Right.
How does it do that?
Well, I mean, let's just use Orange County's median price. Our median price is just under $1 million. So if the buyer side commission was going to be, between 2 and 3%, it's $20,000 to $30,000 in addition to the down payment they're already paying, in addition to all the loan fees they're paying if they're getting a loan, title insurance, prepaid property taxes. It's onerous, and it would preclude many buyers from being able to buy at all. I mean, I don't know about you, but most of my friends don't have an extra 30 grand laying around that isn't earmarked for something.
If you do, could I be your friend?
Call us 1-800-KARA. So it could be preventative. So we're trying to find creative ways to make it so that buyers feel like I am in control of my destiny. I am in control of my broker representation. I know that they're working for me. Let's figure out how to get them paid. And that's where we are at this moment. That's where we are with this new proposed language on these real estate documents.
Gosh, I think about so many of the buyers you work with recently. There were a few who were the first-time buyers, or they were trying to get back into the market after a financial difficulty, and they've scrimped and they've saved in order to get there. And their families believe in them owning this little piece of the American dream and have either given them money or loaned them money there. And then for you to then tell them, that's great, but you need to come up with another 20 or 30K.
Right.
It only then moves out the timeline of them being able to buy a house. And if the market continues as it has been here in Orange County, they literally will be priced out of here.
Yes.
And because of that, you read to me an interesting news story this morning. We can't uncouple the topic of decoupling commission from the issue of home affordability and accessibility to home ownership in here. And so many people cannot own homes here and are leaving the county that one of the local school districts is even going to be consolidating
Right.
campuses because they don't have enough students. And didn't the president of the school district specifically call out home affordability?
Yes. I mean, we all know that birth rate has gone down, and that's another issue for our economy nationally and here. So we're going to have fewer young people paying for a giant aging population. But in addition to that, newer families with young children can't afford these high cost areas, and actually schools are closing because of it.
That was Ocean View School District in Huntington Beach this morning. You know, if you're with them or a family member there, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. Give us a call.
Well, and not to be alarmist, the article was very clear. They're starting a conversation about closing these schools, and they're going to have the conversation very collaboratively with the public. So yeah, if your children are in those schools, then, pay attention and contact them and find out when the meetings are and participate, because, they're your kids.
Well, and even if you're not in that school district, it's a topic that most school districts are going to have to grapple with in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we also hear from a lot of people who say, nah, I can do this myself. I can Google anything online. I'm smart. I do XYZ for a living. I don't need you. What do you say to the people who want to sell their own home without agent representation?
Good luck. Godspeed. Yeah. If all we did was stick a sign in your yard and put it in social media, you could certainly do that. The challenge is you're not thinking about the big picture. You're thinking about that $30,000 or whatever. But what you're not thinking about is the number of years of reach back where the buyer who buys your house could cry foul and say, you didn't do this correctly, you didn't do that correctly, and sue your ass and win, and they could bankrupt you. And I'm not saying this to scare people. I'm saying it's because it's the truth. I've seen agents who did everything right. I've seen brokers who have done everything right get sued and have to go defend themselves, and sometimes lose. And most often when an innocent agent does lose when they've done everything right, it's because they work under the same brokerage umbrella as the other agent who did the bad thing does. All agents that live in that same brokerage are culpable. So that's where dual agency gets challenging. But having said that, it's impossible for a layperson to know everything about the nuance of the market. Even those of us who are working in the market are a bit flummoxed now about how to advise clients, because what existed for decades in terms of normalcy and climate and timing of the market and strategy, it's all changed dramatically. So, good luck.
And that's where your years in this market really do come into play, because you've been able to cultivate relationships with lenders, with real estate attorneys, with other financial professionals who really join you as a collaborative team approach to helping your clients.
Yes.
It's pretty remarkable. I've heard you get on conference calls and others where you're helping to educate and helping to really dig into these thornier issues to make sure the advice you're given has been vetted by other professionals.
Right. And there's just so much nuance to this. If somebody's selling their home on their own, they may not be mindful of keeping receipts for all the improvements that they make to it. So when they sell, they can minimize their capital gains and things like that. And other examples, I've had many buyers come to me and say, okay, I've been pre-approved by my buddy, Joe Blow loan broker. And I'm like, okay, well, would you mind having one of my guys take a look at it? And in the end, they save tens of thousands of dollars on their financing. So working with someone who has decades of experience and decades of relationships will literally save you money. Not sort of, not maybe, it will. And that's why you hire us, not just for our expertise, but also because of our sphere of influence.
Well, I'm sure this won't be the only time we're discussing the issue of decoupling of commissions here on your show, but sadly we are coming to the end of our time together.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, will you take us away with our sponsor? We have to thank them.
Let's thank them. Let's come up with a lot of negative notes here today, and we got to come up with a positive note here today,
Yes.
and that is that you do surround yourself with great people. One of the reasons people come to you and listen to this show, and one of the people that, an example of that is Ford and DiIulio, an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys from the big law firms. Partners who founded the company did so on the concept of aligned interests, where their success is directly related to your success. There's a novel idea, not just driving up the billing and trying to get as much as they can out of the client, where they're rewarded for being efficient and yet effective. and where they engage in the relentless pursuit of their clients' goals, whether in litigation, mediation, or even trial. That's what you're looking for in your legal relationships. You might want to look into FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio.com. I just am amazed. I didn't know all this kind of shenanigans and renegotiations and all this stuff. I thought it was just pretty set straight. There's a kind of an industry standard. 5% gets split between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. And I know the brokers get a little piece of that because they assume the legal liabilities and training over all this stuff here. But you're saying that's all in flux. I guess as prices zoom up, people are trying to find ways to save a nickel or make it more affordable, and they all think, well, why don't we just do this themselves? Has that been the rise of these? What are they? There's a whole bunch of them out there now where you can just go online and list your house, and somehow they put
limited service listings is what that's called.
Right.
So they just they help you fill out the forms legally, hopefully, and they put it in the MLS for you.
Right.
Yeah, and then you do the rest yourself.
And you negotiate it, and you close the deal, and then they just sign the paperwork. And
But something that's interesting, Paul, it's not just in rising, accelerating markets that people get disgruntled. In a falling market, many sellers will then say, I can't afford to lose any more money, so I'm not going to hire a broker. You know, so whenever there's dramatic market movement is when people tend to get grumpy. And trust me, during COVID, there was a lot of dramatic market movement.
Yeah,
It went way, way, way up, and then it stalled, and it fell really quickly. So you can be sure people on both sides of the fence are going to be suing.
I think it's part of a bigger picture we've talked about occasionally on the station. I think we should talk more about this loss of trust in trusted advisors.
Yes.
My wife has high blood pressure. She goes to her doctor. He gives her a pill. I say, did you take it? She says, no. I say, why? I don't know if I believe it. It doesn't feel right. You know more than he does. Well, I'll take a half. I'll take it once in a while.
Wow.
We're all going on feeling. She's not sure. And she likes her doctor. She's been with her doctor for years. Not like she's any reason, but she read this and somebody said this, and I don't like taking a pill. And blah, blah. So it's all down to feeling. How does it feel? It's not about facts anymore. It's about feeling. And that's a scary world we're living in. We're in a post-factual world.
Correct. Truth is no longer truth.
Yeah.
And that really,
alternative truths. Yeah.
it perplexes me.
And the proliferation of social media that allows anyone to espouse any view without having to back it up with facts or credentials is adding to this.
Yeah.
And then it creates confusion. And you
Yes.
say, I don't know. I heard this. I saw this. I'm not sure what I believe anymore here. So we don't know. Was COVID real? Was COVID fake? Was is the market going up? Is the market going down? Is a pill good for you? Is a pill bad for you? We more and more. I remember when at the height of COVID. I'll take go down a rabbit hole for a
Here we go.
second. Height of COVID, building we're in, UCI, shut down. We're allowed to operate because we're a radio station. We're an essential service. And as people started to come back, and they walked up to me, and they said, "How do you feel about this?" I said, "What do you care how I feel about this? Let me tell you what I'm
Right.
hearing. We're in conversations with experts and officials and other people on the ground and stuff. Let me tell you what I'm seeing, what we're reporting." Yeah, but how do you feel? And I think, why do you care how I feel personally? Why don't you?
Yeah.
The best I can do is share with you the information we're collecting from lots of sources here.
Yeah, and make your best judgments accordingly.
But feeling trumps facts these days.
And that's my concern. When at the beginning I was like, sellers, hang on, the recession's going to hit. And all the economists say it's going to be mild. You know, we've already
It seems to be the general consensus.
Yeah, general
these days, right?
consensus. The market's not going to collapse, but consumer confidence may be crazy. They may go nuts because, you know, we're in this weird hyper-reactive state now.
Right.
So that's what concerns me. They may cause the market to tank when it wouldn't have ordinarily, just because they're going nuts and they lack confidence in all of us.
Panic and fear.
Yeah,
dictates
fear and loathing in real
emotion.
estate.
Yeah, fear and loathing in real
Back
estate.
to our last
Have
show.
you seen, last question, have you seen people, because the general consensus, just saw it the other day, prices across the nation have come back down.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean they're cratering. That just means that they went to kind of an absurd point, a very
Right.
absurd point.
And they adjusted.
And they adjusted, came back to a more realistic and sustainable point. But the fact is they came down from an all-time high. That
Yeah.
creates a perception that they're falling, the sky's falling. So are you seeing buyers coming in and saying, I'm not going to come in at 2% less, I'm going to come in at 10% less, 20% less?
Thankfully, I haven't seen that, but I think it's because I don't attract that type of client.
The low ballers.
Yeah, I tend to attract clients who do respect advisors, who do respect trusted professionals, because I usually was brought to them, if they weren't past client already, by their other trusted advisor, their
Right.
tax attorney, their business attorney, their divorce attorney,
Right.
their CPA. So thankfully, I haven't seen that. I have had conversations with sellers, though, often past clients who want to do what was done in yesteryear, and that is, okay, I think it's worth $1 million. Let's put it on at $1,250,000, just so I have some wiggle room.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Buyers are seeing all the data. If they see it and they're like, no, those homes sell for $1 million, they won't even look at it.
Because that's what was happening for a lot of the last year is that people took the last price and added to it.
Yeah.
That plus, X plus.
Yeah, yeah. And it got them nowhere. So, yeah.
And then that creates the impression it was at 1.2 million, and now we're back to 1 million.
And
It's
now the
falling.
price fell. Exactly.
Yeah, it's falling. So then then they'll take 800. They're desperate now or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, but that's just one example of how everything has changed. We talked about how I had a couple of really well qualified buyers write full price offers. Here, you want $1 million? I'll give you $1 million, and I'll let you move out faster, or I'll let you stay longer, or not even get a response. No counter offer, nothing.
Wow.
So, I mean, the whole game has changed. So if someone thinks they can walk into the game now and do it themselves, good luck.
So I'll give you one more. People have said that we are stuck in a dichotomy here where the sellers still want last year's prices and the buyers want next year's prices.
Yeah.
They think there's a mismatch in the marketplace. I, as the buyer, I know you're getting desperate. The market's falling and everything else here is taking longer to sell. And you as a seller saying, I don't have to sell, ain't going to sell, don't want to sell. And so nothing happens. Nobody buys, nobody sells.
I've got a 2.5% interest rate, kid. I can wait.
Yeah.
I can outlast you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much to it. There's always so much to unpack. And today, I'm sure that we've probably provoked some conversations out there. And I would love to hear from people, especially I would love to get our listeners' opinions about how would you like to compensate your broker when you go to buy your next house? What do you think it should look like? Because I'd love to know. I want to make sure that I rebuild my policies according to what you guys want. So,
You know what we can do, Wendy? Just thought of this. On maybe later today or tomorrow, we'll actually post a poll on LinkedIn.
There
yes.
So go to Veracity Real Estate Company, the business page for it, and later today or by tomorrow, we actually will have a poll up, and we really do want to hear from people.
Perfect.
And we can publish that data and have another conversation
Give
about
it to me. We'll put it on our LinkedIn here too. And everything.
Excellent.
Because I think
Thanks, Paul.
that's really an interesting question. You would think they would say, I don't want to pay you at all, or have somebody else pay you. But at the same time, if you're going to do something and it's a big purchase and it's a scary purchase and everything else, then maybe I'd rather just pay you a fee.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd rather just pay you. But then I didn't realize I couldn't deduct that as part of my cost of selling or something here.
I don't know that you can. I'm going to talk to a CPA about that and get back to you.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because it might be better just to have a fixed cost, and then I can hold you accountable. Then I'm paying you this, and I expect so much time and effort and whatnot here. Because too many times, I do agree. I think many of us just feel like you just put the sign in the yard and then showed up to sign the document.
Or buyers say, well, wait, I found these properties on, XYZ website and I told you to take me to them. You didn't even do any work.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the truth.
Right.
Kara knows I spend hours and hours and hours and hours researching the market for my clients. So, and looking for things that they may not have considered, and advising them on, okay, that may not be the best neighborhood for you because, this part of Costa Mesa has soil stability issues or instability issues,
Right.
these kinds of things. But anyway, I keep going down a rabbit hole, but in any case, anybody who wants to talk to me or discuss any of this, call me, email me. I have, no fear. My number is 949-870-2424 or email me, Wendy@realveracity.com. And stay tuned for our poll.
Our poll